As the Ukraine whistleblower story continues to gain steam and may well lead the nation into another impeachment trial, we still have to pause and take note of how much of the heavy lifting to get the facts has been done by the much maligned press, and especially by the much maligned New York Times and the Washington Post. And yet it is happening despite an increasingly hostile White House that not only attacks the press, but in a break here from old journalistic traditions in the U.S., even refuses, we now learn, to help reporters caught in harm's way. We learned that lesson painfully with the murder and dismemberment of the Washington Post's own Jamal Khashoggi, the White House refusing to penalize the Saudis at all. And of course, the president takes his show on the road, shouting fake news, enemy of the people, to those who attend his rallies at basically every stop. He's also actively telling them that the press is lying and that he is the only news source they can trust. I know it sounds like a dictator.
Just stick with us. Don't believe the crap you see from these people, the fake news. And just remember, what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
Okay, we're going to get into the really the attacks in the press and what we learned from the Times. But first, I want to bring in our guest, Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill. She's a Democrat from New Jersey's 11th District. She one of those Democrats we mentioned before that have backgrounds in both intelligence and national security that penned that piece that got so much attention. I should also say that the Congresswoman, in addition, has a fascinating background as it relates to both national security and also law enforcement, she being a former federal prosecutor and also a Navy helicopter pilot. So she's also from one of those districts, by the way, that are frankly considered toss-ups, that it takes a lot of political real courage to frankly take a position that could bite you come re-election time. And as we all know, for all House members, that is every 2 years. All right, let's go to Congresswoman Sherrill right now. Congresswoman, I know you've had a very eventful afternoon and 24 hours. Let me first ask you, what was the tipping point for you? What was the point where you said that, yes, we have to move forward with impeachment and impeachment inquiry?
You know, when I saw that the president withheld military aid to one of our security partners who was fighting the Russians, actively fighting the Russians to preserve Ukraine's territorial integrity, when I saw that the president withheld that security aid that Congress had sent in a very bipartisan manner to Ukraine, and then, furthermore, as he freely admits, then had a conversation with the president of Ukraine about investigating Biden and his son.
To that end, I know some of this is math. I see that we're roughly around 165 Democrats that now take the same position you do. Do you have the sense that the Speaker wouldn't have made the announcement she made about an hour and a half ago if she didn't have confidence that the balance of the Democratic House is going to, at the end of the day, get behind her?
You know, I don't know what it was that changed the Speaker's mind. I know once the other national security Dems and I put out our statement, we called her to tell her that we had, you know, we would have an op-ed out about this. And she spoke to us about our concerns. And I know it was something she took very seriously, our national security, but I'm not sure what it was exactly that moved her.
To that end, there's a political risk for folks like yourself in districts like yourself. At what point, and I know that everybody assigns terrible motives to everybody if they're in the world of politics, but at what point is this not about the next election and about a real concern about basically the health of the democracy?
You know, I think for myself, as somebody who's a Navy veteran and a former federal prosecutor and now a member of Congress, I've always promised to my district that I would put the country before partisan politics. And so for me, you know, time will tell if this is something that my district, you know, is pleased by or not. My sense is it'll be a really mixed bag in my district. But again, as somebody who has taken oath to the Constitution and cares very deeply about our national security, as someone who's worked with our security partners across the world, and knowing how important it is that we maintain those ties and have them help us protect our interests abroad. This just was too great of an attack on our national security by the President of the United States.
And finally, Congresswoman, the President this afternoon, he announced that he's going to release the transcript. We don't know if it's of an edited version, but there's more that Democrats want. Is there any amount of transparency on this Ukrainian episode that this president and his administration can provide, including allowing, I would assume you'd want to hear from the whistleblower as well? Is there anything that can stop this impeachment inquiry at this point, or is it basically a fait accompli?
So it was announced today at the caucus meeting that the caucus is in an impeachment inquiry. But I think that's just really a procedural move. I think really what is taking place is Congress understanding that we need to use every tool that we have to get to the bottom of this to make sure that we don't allow the president to undermine the 2020 elections, that we do ensure that when Congress, in a bipartisan way, decides to support a security partner with vital provisions for fighting somebody who we want to deter, that money and that support gets to that security partner. We want to make sure that the president is not trying to use foreign presidents to undermine our elections. And we want to make sure the president is not using foreign powers to violate the civil liberties of American citizens.
Okay, Thursday obviously will be a seismic day. Congresswoman, I know you've had a very a jam-packed afternoon with the meetings. I appreciate you squeezing a few minutes for myself and our viewers. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I mentioned right off the top of this segment about not just some of the constant threats and attacks the president has made against the press for the last 3 years, but we learned a lot more here. An amazing editorial at the hands of the New York Times publisher. We're going to get into that with our guest right after this.